I might be busted. I might be downtrodden. But how are you going to get glory from this? I may know why. I may not know why. But how are you going to get glory from this? I may have wasted my years. I may have done drugs. But here I am today. God, how are you going to get glory from this? We need to change the narrative. God says you're destined to win. We gotta turn it around.
Hello and welcome to this Thanksgiving edition of Destined to Win. Has life ever hit you so hard it caused you to question God? Think about it. Maybe the company you work for has laid you off. Maybe you got a bad report from the doctor. You find yourself suddenly facing divorce or trying to cope with challenges with your kids or your loved ones. All of these things can be a punch in the gut that knocks the wind right out of us and ultimately leads to us asking, why God? And it's not just messed up people who find themselves in this place. In fact, it's the ones who walk with God the most that find themselves in these kind of situations. The Word of God is full of godly people with dynamic relationships with the Lord who come to the same question. Moses, David, Jeremiah, and even Jesus questioned God at times. But today I want to share with you one thought that will steer you through every situation, one concept that will turn every question into an opportunity to experience God's goodness in your life. So I hope you're ready to give thanks and praise God because your breakthrough is coming. Let's get into today's message.
The Bible says, now as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. And when he said those things, he spat on the ground and made clay with his saliva. And he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay. And he said to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is translated sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. Therefore the neighbors and those who previously had seen him, that he was blind, said, is not this he who sat and begged? Some said, this is he. Others said, he is like him. He said, I am he. Therefore they said to him, how were your eyes opened? And he said and answered, a man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, go to the pool of Siloam and wash. So I went and washed and received sight. I've entitled today's message, But for His Glory. Has life ever hit you so hard that it's left you not just questioning, but questioning God? And I'm talking about things more serious than somebody blocks you on Facebook. I know that's a big deal today. People get highly insulted and offended. I can't believe they blocked me on Facebook. They're not following me anymore. Why did they do that to me? I can't believe. I'm talking about serious stuff. You get laid off from work. Your spouse of 25 years comes home, says they don't love you anymore and they want to have a divorce. The industry you're in closes down. The doctor says that it's cancer. The teenager that you've raised in church is no longer in church. You know, you're given a prognosis that you only have so much time to live. A loved one that was dear to you has died. And it's left you, not that you don't have a relationship with God, not that you don't want a relationship with God. You still want that, but you're frustrated, you're exasperated, you're depressed, your world has been rocked and shocked and all those kind of things. And you turn to the one who's supposed to hold your world in his hands, and you ask him, not because you don't want to have a relationship with him anymore, but because he's the one who you turn to, and he's the one who is supposed to fix all these problems. And you ask him things like, but why, God? And how come, God? And why now, God? And why did this have to happen to me? And why didn't it happen to them? And God, but what did I do wrong? And I don't understand. And God, when's it going to end? And you start to ask all those questions of God. Has life ever hit you so hard that you've been left questioning God? And here is God's word to us in a nutshell today. God's word is simply this. When life perplexes you, When life brings situations and struggles and pains and all of those things that leave you questioning God, you have to change your question from what for God and how come and why God to this, how God am I going to allow you to get glory from this? God, how are you going to get glory from my situation? God, I may be going through a divorce, but how are you going to get glory from this? God, I may have been laid off from work, but God, how are you going to get glory from this? God, I may have lost my job, but how are you going to get glory from this? God, a loved one may have just died, but how are you going to get glory from this? God, I may have been diagnosed with cancer, but how are you going to get glory from this? God, I may be broken. I might be busted. I might be downtrodden, but how are you going to get glory from this? I may know why. I may not know why, but how are you going to get glory from this? I may have wasted my years. I may have done drugs, but here I am today. God, how are you going to get glory from this? We need to change the narrative. God, here I am. Use me. God, use my blessings. Use my brokenness. God, use my ups. God, use my downs. God, use the things that I like and the things that I hate. Use my triumphs and use my defeats. Use my strengths and use my weaknesses. God, use the good in me and the bad in me. God, use what I like and what I despise. God, use my hallelujahs and God, use my hell no's. God, use whatever you want in my life. My life is a canvas, God, for you to write on. My life is here to be the backdrop of your glory. God, I am not here for me. I'm here for you. That's Christianity. So I want to give you a couple of keys. How do you maintain a but for his glory mindset? Key number one, you realize that darkness always precedes the dawn. Said another way, darkness always precedes the glory. Glory cannot manifest itself against light. It has no place to shine forth. It needs a dark backdrop in order for it to be recognized. The glory always comes after its darkest. Look at this verse number 6 in our text. When he had said these things, when he had finished straightening out the disciples, who, by the way, presupposed that they knew why the man had his problem. They said, who sinned? Which means they've already determined that the cause of their issue was somebody sinned. And they narrowed it down to 2 people, 3, him or the parents. So they knew in their minds the reason, but they didn't know who was responsible. And so Jesus, after these things, after he sets them straight, how many of you know if sin caused blindness like that, everybody in this room would be blind? Every one of our kids would be blind. Sin causes things to happen, but there is not always a direct correlation, direct cause and effect. And they were looking for one. And Jesus, after these things, here's what he does. He spits on the ground. He makes clay with his saliva, and he anoints the eyes of the blind man with the clay. Now, the blind man was blind, but he wasn't deaf. So he's standing in front of Jesus, and he hears... 2. Here's my question for you. What would you do if you were the blind man? He was probably like, whoa, what's going on right here? Yo, Jesus, take it easy. Here's the deeper question. What do you do when God begins to do stuff that don't seem right? What do you do when in your life God begins to... Do you back off? Do you duck it? Do you move? Or do you just stand? God, I don't understand why. I don't understand how. I'm dying to know when. But God... even though I can't figure this out and figure you out, God, I'm just going to stand right here. How many of you know the blind man said nothing? Everybody else was talking about his issue, but he just said nothing. All he did was stand, and all he did was trust. And sometimes, how many of you know that there are certain miracles that you can't do anything else for, that all you can do is stand still and see the salvation of God. Be still and know that he is God. By the way, did you notice that this man was healed, this blind man was healed differently than other blind people Jesus healed? Because God doesn't want you to fall in love with the process. He wants you to fall in love with him. And so here this guy is. And he, through arduous walking and tasking and working, he makes his way to the pool. Could you imagine how he must have felt when he got there and felt water? Could you imagine what kind of relief it was that he made it through everything that he had to go through, that he made it despite having mud on him to the place where he could get his breakthrough, where he was on the brink of his breakthrough. And here's what God wants you to do. Some of you just need to celebrate that you have made it as far as you have with all the mud that has been thrown your way. Some of you ought to be grateful that you got up this morning, because you should have been curled up in a ball in the corner of the room, but you got up and you put your clothes on. You got up and you made breakfast. You got up and you went to work. You got up and you came to church. You provide for your family. You take care of your kids. God told me to tell you, heaven's cheering you on right now. Heaven is happy that you made it as far as you have. If you are going to have a but for his glory mentality, you've got to celebrate how far you've made it. Number 3, you've got to use your praise to wash off the whys. The Bible says he went and washed. Do you know how to wash off your questions? It's through praise. I can't explain the scientific connection between praise and questions and doubt and fears being lessened or being washed away, but I know it works. I can't explain to you how the electricity turns the light on in my house. I have no idea. I'm not an electrician. I don't know how that works. But here's one thing I know. Every time I flip the switch on, the light goes on. I know it works. I can't explain to you how praise washes away questions, but I can tell you with absolute certainty, unequivocal certainty, that as you praise God in the midst of your problems and in the midst of your questions and in the midst of your whys and in your blindness and from your cancer and from your dysfunction and whatever it is that has rocked your world, I can tell you that the whys begin to get washed away, because as the praises go up, the blessings of God come down, and God washes away your fears and your doubts and your troubles. Got to use your praise. Last thing I want to share with you. Number 4, if you want to have a but for his glory mindset, know that God wants to put glory in your story. We didn't read the end of the story, but here's how it goes. The man goes, he washes, he gets healed, and we don't know what that's like for the guy. We just envision, oh, it must be great. Could you imagine what it's like to see for the first time when you've never seen in your entire life? I found this little clip on Facebook, I think it's on YouTube also, of people that heard for the first time. I want you to check this out so you can imagine what it was like for this guy to see for the first time. Check this out.
Hi, Cooper. Hi, Cooper.
There you go, it's beeping. So now technically your device is on. Can you tell?
What do you think?
Amazing.
Sound clear or does it sound muffled?
Sounds clear.
Is it on?
How does it sound?
My God!
Isn't that awesome? Imagine what it was like for that blind guy. Never saw a day in his life. All of a sudden he sees. Some of us don't want to see another day because depression has hit us so hard, or some of us don't like what we're seeing. You know what I found out? That our normal is somebody else's miracle. And so here we see Jesus performing this incredible miracle for this guy. Seeing for the first time, seeing colors for the first time, seeing the water that he stepped into seeing his hands, seeing what he looked like, seeing his loved ones for the first time. Aren't you glad that we serve a God of miracles? Aren't you glad that God can still do the impossible? But here's what I want you to see. He puts glory in this man's story. And this man doesn't even know who Jesus is. Here's how the story goes. After Jesus shows him his glory, the man is brought to the religious leaders for questioning. Why is he brought to them for questioning? Because our glory is not for us. The glory God gives us is not for us. The glory God gives us is so other people can see it. And so the man is not allowed. I believe even though the enemies of God took him to be questioned, that God ordained for him to be questioned because he had to go to where people needed to see the glory on display. And so the man is brought to be questioned so they can see the glory of God. He's brought there to be questioned, and as he's questioned, they don't recognize him. They don't think it's the same person. Do you know why? Because when God touches your life, you ought to be that different. I don't know where we got the idea that God touches our lives and we remain the same. That if you're a Christian, things shouldn't change. When you're a Christian, old things are passed away. All things become new. Your likes ought to change. Your dislikes ought to change. Your walk ought to change. Your talk ought to change. Your habits ought to change. You should be so different that people should say, is that really you? Do you have a twin? They should know there's something different about you. So they don't recognize him. They call the parents in. Parents come in and say, yeah, that's our son. That's our boy. Imagine what that was like. Imagine the parents seeing the son sing for the first time. And so then they ask the guy, well, who do you say this guy Jesus is? Here's what the guy says. I'm paraphrasing. He says, I don't really know. I don't know who he is. You guys think he's this or you guys think he's that. He says, here's one thing I do know. I was blind, but now I see. And we've preached that in so many different ways. We've preached that, the proof is in the pudding. There are a lot of people out there that believe in a lot of gods, but there's only one God that hung in our place. There's only one God that defeated death, hell, and the grave. There's only one God that could do miracles. There's only one God that actually lived and died and was resurrected again. The proof is in the pudding. I was blind, but now I see. But here's what I think is cool. They throw him out after he says that. They say, get out of here. We don't have no use for you. Now he's outcasted. But guess what Jesus does? Jesus goes and finds him. Aren't you glad that Jesus will find you wherever you are? Aren't you glad that no matter how many walls you put up, no matter how angry you get, no matter how sinful you live, no matter how much time you try to run from God, that God will hunt you down? David said it this way, if I make my bed in hell, I still cannot escape your presence, because even there I'll find you, God. God loves you that much. So he goes and he finds the guy, and they have this conversation, and here's how the conversation goes. He says, do you believe in the Son of God? Jesus asked. And he answered, who is he, Lord? That I may believe in him. And Jesus said to him, you have both seen him, and it is he who is talking with you. And then he said, Lord, I believe, and he worshiped him. Here's what that means. Jesus put glory in the story of an individual that didn't even know he was Lord. If God used somebody that didn't know him, if God put glory in the story of somebody who wasn't his own child, who didn't believe he was Lord and Savior, how much more does God want to put glory in your story and 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 your story? How much more does God want to put glory in the story of those that belong to him? Yeah, but Pastor, I'm going through a divorce, but God's going to get glory out of that. Yeah, but Pastor, I'm struggling with an addiction. God's going to get glory out of that. Yeah, but Pastor, I've made one bad choice after another, but God's going to get glory out of that. Yeah, but Pastor, I cannot deal with the loss of my loved one. God's going to get glory out of that. I lost my job, Pastor. God's going to get glory out of that. God told me to tell somebody that your why has put you on schedule for your destiny. Put you on schedule for it. Think about this. If David never faced Goliath, would he have become king? No. If Esther had never been orphaned, would she have been there to intercede for Israel? If Paul had never been on a Damascus road, would he have written 2/3 of the New Testament? If John had never been exiled to the Isle of Patmos, would he have written the book of Revelation? If the man was not born blind, would he have been a walking billboard for God's glory? Now, I didn't say that God put the why on any of these people. That's what makes it even that much more powerful. We all know the devil can throw some real good whys our way, some real good questions our way, and give us some real crazy answers. And his intent is for those whys and those questions to paralyze us and immobilize us and cause us to quit on our faith. But here is what the God of the universe does. God takes those whys that are sent in your life to destroy you and puts you on schedule for your destiny. God takes the why and causes it to be a step in where you're going and what he has for your life. He is truly the God who takes all things and works them together for the good for those that love him and are called according to his purpose. I don't know what your why is, but here's what I do know. I do know you got an appointment with your destiny. It's time to embrace a different answer. The answer is God's going to get glory out of that situation, but for his glory, but for his glory, but for his glory. I'm not going to allow the devil to mark me for the rest of my life, God, but for your glory. I'm not going to allow this scar to define me, but for your glory, God. I'm not going to allow this setback to be the thing that has the final say in my life, God, but for your glory. I'm not going to allow this disease to totally cause me to be down and out, but for your glory. I'm not going to allow this job loss to cause me to lose my joy, but for your glory. I'm not going to allow this divorce to make me into another person, but for your glory, God, but for your glory, but for your glory. God, it is all about your glory on display, but for your glory.
When life hits you so hard that you begin to question God and get stuck in the blame game, that's when you need to change the question from why God or why me to how is God going to get glory from this? You don't have to ignore your current situation or condition, but you can't let it define who you are or limit God's goodness in your life. You may not have expected to find yourself without a job, but now is the time to decide that God is going to get glory out of this. You may have lost a loved one, or maybe you're going through a divorce, or you feel like you wasted years of your life. The question isn't, why did it happen? The proper question is, how can God use me in the middle of this mess, in the middle of this struggle, to get the glory? No matter what you're facing today, God has your answer. And he has a way of working everything together for your good. I want to equip you with these vital resources that you need to not only be able to make it through the hardest hits that life can throw your way, but also to hit back and win and face every single challenge. My announcer is coming in just a minute to tell you how you can get a copy of today's exclusive broadcast offer. I want to remind you that when you call today, you're doing more than just getting these powerful ministry resources. You're sowing your seed into good ground to reap a great harvest. Every day, we hear how this program and our ministry outreaches are changing people's lives. Your gift, your seed, it makes it all happen. And as you sow, I'm agreeing with you by faith that you will see the promises of God manifest in your life. I'll be right back. Watch this.
Has life ever hit you so hard that it's left you not just questioning, but questioning God?
Even the most spiritually powerful people get rocked at times in their journey.
You get laid off from work. Your spouse of 25 years comes home, says they don't love you anymore, and they want to have a divorce. The industry you're in closes down. The doctor says that it's cancer. The teenager that you've raised in church is no longer in church.
When these circumstances happen, you need to know how to use your faith to fight back. Faith is the ingredient that will show you the purpose of what you're going through. And it's the purpose behind the pain that makes all the difference. Pastor Frank Santora has assembled the perfect toolkit to build your faith for the fight. Today's special offer includes some amazing tools that will show you how to punch back at your problems and win the battle for your future. When you call with your ministry gift, you'll get the complete 4-part CD series, Real Faith. This power-packed collection has a unique twist. With each message, Pastor Frank goes beneath the surface of a popular faith-based movie like Heaven is for Real, God's Not Dead, and The Son of God to reveal the deeper messages you probably missed. Lessons that will show you how to take God's hand and exercise the faith you need in any situation. Plus, call right now and you'll also get Pastor Frank's brand new prayer and declaration CD. Every day, you can use the CD to declare the Word of God over your life. These faith-filled declarations will break down strongholds and defeat any attack of the enemy. These resources are yours as Pastor Frank's thank you for your gift of only $40 or more. And for those of you who pick up the phone or go online right now, you'll get a special bonus CD, The Offering. This worship CD from Faith Church is filled with wonderfully anointed songs to help comfort and encourage you no matter what you're going through. Pastor Frank and the family at Faith Church believe that God will transform your world through the power of the gospel. They are committed to letting every person know that with Jesus, they are destined to win. Your gift of $40 or more will help them accomplish this mission by supporting missions, feeding programs, and television broadcasts like you saw today. Take a step of faith and connect with a ministry that is doing tremendous things for the kingdom. So call or go online right now to receive your gift. The 4-part CD series, Real Faith, that includes messages from your favorite movies, the prayer and declaration CD, and the songs of worship from The Offering. All of this as a special thank you for your love gift of $40 or more. Don't wait any longer. Call now.
Thank you so much for joining me today on this Thanksgiving edition of Destined to Win. As we close, I want to encourage you to take a moment and give thanks for the power of God in your life. No matter what you might be facing, God is ready to turn it around for your good and for His glory. Don't forget to go to the phone or go online and get your copy of today's exclusive broadcast offer. You don't want to miss our next broadcast. I can't wait to see you then. And remember, as always, with Jesus, you are destined to win.
If you're in the New York City or Connecticut area, we invite you to visit us at one of our locations or join us online every Sunday at faithchurch.cc/live. On behalf of Pastor Frank and from all of us at Faith Church, God bless you, we love you, and we'll see you next week.